this is a great question on the topic of managing and taking self-responsibility for our self-talk and emotions. Why is it harder to control my mind some of the time rather than others? The Wu-Wei wisdom approach is so simple and makes complete sense.
So simple. Well done.
But
oh, no, don't give me a but.
Yet it's so difficult to implement consistently.
No, it's not. No.
So some days I'm so on it. Other days, even though I follow the golden thread process and the Wu-Wei wisdom principles you teach, and I know exactly what I'm doing, I still don't accept it. I don't take self-responsibility. I continue to believe in perfection and external validation, and I know it's my fault, and yet I still choose not to stop it.
So stop it!
But why?
Stop it!
Why? Welcome to our Wu-Wei Wisdom Life Lessons series. In each episode, we answer your questions, reveal the powerful life lesson, and offer you lots of practical tips and advice to help you live in balance, harmony, and flow. So do we want to go back to the beginning?
Let's do the first one first.
Okay, so why is it harder to control my mind some of the time rather than others?
Okay, so this is why I like the analogy of the inner child, because no analogies are perfect, but this analogy I think really works well, because your mind can act like a child. Mm-hmm. Remember now, let's just do a quick kind of know what we're talking about. We're talking about that part of your mind that's like a kernel that's stuck and it speaks to you through your self-talk. So, like a child, have you noticed when a child comes and starts to mither you, starts to ask you things, it doesn't wait until the right time. Exactly. It waits until you're tired. It waits until you're cooking the dinner. It waits until you're ready for bed, or just as he's going to bed, the child will say, "So what's the meaning of life, Mum?" And why does it wait until those times to ask you those questions? Because you're more likely to give in. You're more likely when he says, "Oh, please, can I stop one more time? Can I watch the football to the end? Oh, can I play my game? I'm halfway through." And you're more likely to say, "Okay," because you are tired. You're at the end of your tether. Mm-hmm. All of these words I hear. I'm at the end of my tether. I've never found out what a tether is, but I'm at the end of it. And so the mind, the inner child, your mind works in exactly the same way. So when you're tired, when you've had a hard day, when you haven't slept well, here's the 3 a.m. mind. When you wake up in the morning and it's at you, that's because it believes that it can get its own way. It believes that the resistance will give in. And you know why it believes that? Because that's what's happened in the past. Okay. And so the more you give in, the more you let it own way, the more you say, "Oh, I can't be bothered. Oh, it's too much for me." It's easier. How many times have you said that? It's easier. It's not easier. Stop it. Because if you give in, then it will just come back more powerful the next time.
So this is like we talk on our inner child video, and I'll put a link up to it, that about the super nanny analogy, that if the parent who's like, "Oh no, I can't cope with this child, is so unruly," if you keep giving in, the child becomes more willful, more determined, more persistent, more having a big temper tantrum when you don't allow it to get its way.
Well, yeah, because it believes that if it shouts and screams loud enough, you will give in. Why does it believe that? Because that's exactly what's happened as in the past. Yeah. You've given in. You've gone for what you believe is the easy life. Yeah. Actually, it's not the easy life.
It's
absolutely. It puts you onto the carousel and you keep on coming round and around and around. And the child, it's a little bit like throwing red meat to a tiger. It just gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's the term that we use in the Wu-Wei model. I don't know whether we'll get onto it with these questions. Compassionate self-discipline. Yeah. This is where you've got to Speak to your mind. It doesn't matter how tired you are, how worn out you are, how close to the end of that tether you are. You've got to care for yourself. You've got to love yourself. You've got to be prepared to draw the line in the sand and say, no, stop it. People laugh when I use stop it, but stop it's such a powerful technique. Just stop it. We're not going any further. Drop your shoulders, take a breath, and then address the situation. Doesn't matter how tired you are. It will not get easier by putting it on the carousel. You know, those carousels at the airports, because it will just come round the next day, even stronger, even more powerful. And then you just give in again and give in again and give in again. And then you lose who you are. You lose your authenticity. You lose connection with your Shen. It is just not worth it. Stand up to the mind, answer its questions, treat it with love and respect, and be kind and keep in your neutral spot.
And so is what you're saying that actually the human-centered mind or the inner child is consciously choosing to come at you more when you're tired?
Yes.
Or is it more a case of like the adult, authentic part of our mind, the balanced part of our mind is just in more control in the daytime when we're fully energized, fully awake, fully on top of things?
Yes. Well, both of those.
Both.
It's a bit of both of those. So the mind, remember, the inner child is not your enemy. It's not trying to harm you. It's trying to keep you safe and protected by keeping on the familiar. It doesn't like you doing new things. It doesn't like you moving out of your comfort zone. It wants that comfort blanket wrapped around you. It doesn't like you taking responsibility. All the questions, which I'm sure we're going to come up to. You've got to be careful of a comfort blanket, though, because a comfort blanket can smother you. Stop it. Deal with the issue the mind brings to you. You have all the resources. Don't go into the lies about I can't cope, it's not good, I'm not good enough, and all that rubbish. Deal with the issue it's bringing you lovingly, firmly, calmly. Give it the answer it's searching for. But do not give in to it. Once you give in to it, you're just creating bigger problems in the future. Doesn't matter whether you're tired, worn out, at the end of your tether, at the end of the day, in the middle of the night. Please do not use that as an excuse or justification.
If I'm kind of just before I go to bed, or if I wake up in the middle of the night and my self-talk is going on like this, you know, lots of CCJ, comparing, criticizing, being judgmental, I'm wondering, is that really the best time to start having a major conversation with yourself and exploring, you know, what are the thoughts and beliefs behind this? Or is it just a case of saying, you know, whether it's just before you go to bed or in the middle of the night, you know what, I acknowledge this, but I know my inner child is having a go here, or my human-centered mind is having a go here. I'm just going to compassionately say, stop it for now, and I will deal with it in the morning. Would you say that's a good strategy? Because
I don't think this is what you'll find with these life lessons series. There's not one thing that fits all. For me personally, I like to deal with it as soon as my inner child brings up something. I like to deal with it immediately. I don't like to put it on the back burner. There may be times where it's inappropriate to deal with it,
course.
but you have to build up a trust that the inner child will believe that you will go back to it and you're not avoiding it. And so there's a big difference in telling your child that you're going to deal with this later. If you ever say that, you must go and deal with it later.
Next day or
because
later
most
that
times
day,
we just go, oh, well, yeah, I'll deal with it later. And we haven't got the intention to deal with it. And there's what we call the lie. And so if you're lying to yourself, then the child will know, and he'll just keep on going and going and going and going. And this is why you have to come back to being truthful, honest, and acting with integrity. Do not lie to yourself, and do not lie to your child. So either or both. Some of my clients like to have a little journal by the bed, and as Alex says, if it starts off, just make a little note. But whatever it's telling you, you've got to deal with it. You have to deal with it.
Yeah. because I think for me personally, if I started to explore and think about more what I was being told or whatever, I would get myself more in a tears, more worked up. I think I would rather just say, look, as you say, acknowledge that something is being said here in the self-talk with the human-centered mind, the inner child. Write it down, make a note, acknowledge it and say, I'm going to deal with that later today, I'm going to deal with that tomorrow morning, and then keep your promise.
You've got to keep your promise. You've got to keep your promise. That's the key, because most people will say, I'll deal with it later as a form of avoidance, and then it never gets dealt with, and then that just encourages the mind to shout louder.
And the other thing I think from experience as well, some days you can have really, really good days, or you can have really, really good week, or a really, really good month where you are applying the principles, you're on top of the game, you're doing all the compassionate self-discipline. But then for whatever reasons, something happens or whatever, you just have a bit of a lapse. I think you have to be careful not to stop beating yourself up about that.
But why would you beat yourself up? I don't even understand why you would even consider. Well, this is the thing,
because the human-centered mind then uses the fact that you're not 100% on it to then say, well, there you go. You thought you were right, but you're not. And then I know this happens with a lot of our clients. They then start beating themselves up because they feel like they've stepped back to their old ways and everything, and it's not. It's a journey, and we say, just get back on the bike and start pedaling again.
Start pedaling and just learn your lesson. That's why we're calling this series Life Lessons. There's a lesson. So if you've been doing really well and then something knocks you off your bike, there's a lesson to be learned there.
Exactly.
And you've got to learn that lesson. Exactly. I see it as a positive, because if you don't learn the lesson and you avoid it, you put it on the carousel, it will just come back even stronger. I think that the second part of that question was...
Yeah, so the second part is I find it difficult to implement consistently. Some days I'm on it, other times I'm not. Even though I know what I'm doing, I don't take responsibility.
So, you see, I could stop it there.
Yeah.
See, I could just stop it there. And I would turn that round. You are choosing not to take responsibility. So please send a message. Tell us, if you are not prepared to take responsibility for your life, who do you want to take responsibility? If you can't be bothered to take responsibility for your life, and I'm going to be really strong, if you can't be bothered, who do you want to be bothered? Who do you want to take responsibility? This is a nonsense. You have to stop this, because there is no, I don't want to take responsibility. I'll take responsibility today. I'm not going to take responsibility tomorrow. I'll take responsibility when everything is going well, but I won't take responsibility. This is where it goes wrong. You have no choice. If you do not take, it's like, I'm going to drive my car, and then sometimes I'll take my hands off the car. Oh, and I shouldn't crash. You've got to take responsibility. This is spirituality. You're not perfect. You won't get it right. You will make mistakes, and that's how you learn. But you can't then decide when you're going to take responsibility, when you're not going to take responsibility, and then go into a big, long discussion and drag people into your maze. There's no choice. You take responsibility all of the time. That doesn't mean to say you're perfect. That doesn't mean to say you'll get it right, but nobody else can do it for you. And if you're looking for a fairy godmother that comes flying in when your life gets difficult, good luck with that, because I've never seen her, except in Walt Disney.
But David, taking responsibility all the time sounds like really hard work.
You're joking. It's the greatest spiritual thing that you can do. My goodness, what are you talking about? You know, we talk about spirituality. This is spirituality. You are so blessed to be on this journey. My goodness, look in the mirror. Look at just your skin, your hair, your eyes. Look at how awesome you are, and you don't want to take responsibility for your awesomeness in case somebody might say something, or what other people think about me, or I won't be perfect, or I'll get it wrong. I mean, come on, stop it. It is all nonsense. There is no choice. Take responsibility. and don't think you're going to get it right. In fact, when you get it wrong, that's the best opportunity to learn your lesson. This is what this series is called. Learn your lesson, understand why you got it wrong, and then you can get back on the bike and start pedaling. What was the other bit?
Okay. I think one thing I wanted to say, which I think is quite important, is the person who asked the question says, I continue to still believe in perfection, external validation. But so the issue is here that when things have been good, okay, you know, when there's been no pressure at home, at work, life has been sweet, often we can think, you know what, we're on top of this, we're taking self-responsibility, we've weeded out all the inauthentic beliefs, we're living our truth, we're doing everything right. And then we don't put in the work, we kid ourselves. And then when the pressures do come on, as you know, we get like challenges in life, things go wrong, as does happen in life, that's when we realize this
is what I don't understand.
But we don't do the work.
You haven't done the work.
Well, this is the thing.
You haven't done the work.
When times are good and there's no pressure and it's easy, we kind of slip back. We don't continue to do the work to actually fully weed out the beliefs. And so then when we meet a challenge or a pressured situation in life, then we get the red lights again. And then we say, I can't understand. I thought I was on top of this. I know all the principles. I thought I was on top of this. Why have I got red light? It's because you've not dealt with the core beliefs.
But knowing the principles, Alex, and applying them is two different things.
Self-responsibility.
Knowing how to drive a car and driving the car is two different things. It's you can't say, oh, yes, I understand the principles, David, but remember what but means? But means forget what I've just said. I still want to be perfect. Hey, why don't you start your own class on you should be perfect? Why don't you start your own workshop? Start your own YouTube group about everybody should be perfect. You wouldn't do that. Why? Because you know it's nonsense. Why, if you believe it's nonsense, why do you keep on believing it? If you believe there's such a thing called perfect and you are perfect or you trying to achieve perfect, right below, who judges perfection? Well, you can't because you're not perfect. So who are you looking to judge your perfection? And that's what you said, external. You're looking externally. So if you're not perfect, who do you believe is perfect? In this world, who do you believe is perfect? Who have we got to all look to follow? This is a complete nonsense. And the thing that really I feel, if you was here, I'd give you a good shake. You already know this is rubbish and you still do it. Stop it.
Yeah.
Will you stop it? Come back down and think about it. Yes, at the moment, I still believe in this concept of perfection. Then please write to me and tell me why you want to continue in that belief system. I will tell you the answer. Because you believe that if you were perfect, then guess what? Nobody would criticize you. Everybody would be in awe of you. You'd be slightly superior to other people. Not to lord it over them or to rub their nose in it, but they would teach you with a certain amount of reverence and care and love, and they would never disagree with you, and you'd get your life in a way. Wouldn't this be... This is not reality. You know it's not reality. You're making a utopian. You might as well go and work for Walt Disney, because this is not real life. Why do you want to create this? Because this is what creates the red light feelings. This is what is creating the problem, because you're not aligned with nature, with reality. You're fighting against it. You're trying to create what I call a dual belief system. A belief system for as everyone else, but a different one for you because you're a bit special. And you've got to stop this. This will not work. And this is what you're saying here. It just will continue. You'll be on the carousel going round and around and around. So how do you cure it? Stop lying to yourself. If you believe in perfection, then state your case. I'm happy to listen. You can put it in the bottom of these videos. State to me what perfection is, who judges perfection, and how hard and when do you reach that perfection? Those are simple questions, aren't they? Just write them down.
Yeah.
And then rather than saying, I know I shouldn't believe this, David, but turn it around, do the flip. I call it the flip. I do believe this, David. Great. Now tell me why you believe it.
And it's taking self-responsibility for doing that work.
Yes, exactly.
So there's a few things really we've unpacked from these questions. One is about understanding, acknowledging and managing the inner child and the human-centered mind when it comes at you at inappropriate times.
So you do that lovingly, calmly, you listen to the questions and you answer the questions either immediately or later, but you always answer the questions.
Then there's, if we do fall off the bike, don't beat yourself up. Just get back on the bike and start pedaling.
And learn the life lesson. You've fallen off the bike because you haven't understood the life lesson, such as perfection.
Do the deeper work.
That person there hasn't understood the life lesson of perfection. She knows it's unachievable, but she's not going to accept that. That's her choice. That's her choice. Then instead of saying, David, you're wrong, this is what she should be saying. David, you are so wrong. There is something called perfection. Then tell me what that is. Isn't that easier? I'm going to start my own YouTube channel on You Can Be Perfect. Why don't you do that? And then, you see, that cuts out all of the confusion, the contradiction, the paradox, the swinging pendulum. Say what you actually believe. Say it. And then justify it and give me the reasons.
Great.
So those are the life lessons.
Yeah.
Take full self-responsibility.
Act appropriately.
And then speak to your child compassionately, lovingly. Give it the education, the emotional education that it really wants. Don't lie to it. Don't avoid it. Don't put it off. And listen to the words you're saying. Remember what I'm always saying. The words you use are the bricks that build the house you live in. Don't say, I know this is wrong, but you should be saying, this is what I want to continue to believe. Do the flip. Don't argue with yourself. And this is why it's straightforward. It's very easy. Don't complicate it. When you complicate it, you put a maze of confusion, smoke and mirrors around what the problem is. That's why you can't see the problem.
And I think as well, for me, it helps to have in place almost like a daily regime, something I do every day.
Called a meditation.
Meditation of whatever mindfulness, whatever kind of meditative practice suits you, that you have, you set aside, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour a day, regular, that you do that conversation work, that inner conversation work, that work where you're looking at the beliefs, the work where you're engaging your inner child, to have that as an essential part of your daily routine, so that, you know, it's all well and good knowing all the principles, but that you have to have that compassionate self-discipline to have that regime in place every day, even when times are good and you're not under pressure.
Exactly. It's just a personal integrity. You do that because you care for yourself, you love yourself, and you want to enjoy this fantastic, awesome life that you're blessed to be living.
Great. So if that particular question and topic resonated with you, please post your comments and questions below and we'll be very happy to answer them for you.
Especially if you believe there's such a thing called perfection. Please tell me. I'd love to know.
Yeah. Great.